Crystal clear water is a liar. That pristine stream running through the ruins isn't a lifeline. It is a loaded gun pointed directly at your gut. You think thirst is your enemy, but the real monster is invisible, tasteless, and currently multiplying in the very liquid you are dying to drink. I have survived the barren freeze and the scorching waste, and I learned the hard way that your eyes will betray you every single time. The cold fact is that you are a biological machine running on a coolant that is now universally poisoned. Today, we are not just filtering dirt, we are using raw physics to dismantle death on a molecular level. Stop drinking the lie before it dissolves you from the inside out. The biological countdown. You need to understand exactly what is happening to your body right now, because panic is the precursor to death. The moment the grid went down and the taps ran dry, your internal clock started ticking toward total systemic failure. The human body is roughly 60% water, a walking sack of saline solution that requires constant replenishment to facilitate the electrical signals keeping your heart beating and your brain firing. When you stop inputting clean hydration, your blood volume decreases, turning your veins into sludge pipes. This is not just about a dry mouth or chapped lips. This is about your blood becoming too thick to carry oxygen to your organs. You are experiencing the initial stages of hypovolemic shock, where the body begins to cannibalize itself, shutting down non-essential systems to keep the brain alive. The headache you feel is your brain shrinking away from your skull due to fluid loss. However, the desperation this physiological terror induces is exactly what leads to the fatal mistake of drinking from the first source you find. The puddle by the overturned bus or the shimmering river looks inviting, but in a post-collapse world, surface water is a cocktail of heavy metals, industrial runoff, and biological agents that no amount of wishing will neutralize. If you drink raw water now, you introduce pathogens that induce dysentery or cholera, accelerating your dehydration through vomiting and diarrhea. It is a cruel paradox where drinking makes you thirstier and kills you faster. To survive, we must stop acting like scavengers and start thinking like chemical engineers. We are going to exploit the laws of thermodynamics to force water to separate from its contaminants. Method 1. The geothermal solar trap. This is your primary defense when you have sunlight but zero infrastructure, a technique that turns the very ground beneath your feet into a purification plant. The concept relies on the greenhouse effect and the phase change of water from liquid to gas. You are going to construct a solar still, but you must execute this with precision because a sloppy build yields nothing but sweat and disappointment. Begin by locating a spot that receives direct, unshaded sunlight for the majority of the day. You are going to dig a pit roughly 3 feet across and 2 feet deep. As you dig, you might hit damp earth, which is a good sign, but do not stop there. The goal is to create a subterranean chamber where we can manipulate temperature differentials. Once your pit is dug, you need to introduce the contaminated source material. This is where you abandon your squeamishness. Place a collection container dead center in the bottom of the hole. Around this container, pour whatever foul liquid you have scavenged. This could be the radioactive green sludge from the river, brackish water, urine, or mystery fluids from abandoned buildings. It does not matter what the source is because the physics of evaporation is universal. You can also line the sides of the pit with fresh vegetation, leaves, and torn branches. Plants naturally hold water and, through a process called transpiration, will release moisture when trapped in a heated environment. You are essentially stealing the plant's blood to replenish your own. With the trap baited, cover the entire opening of the pit with a sheet of clear plastic. This could be a painter's drop cloth, a shower curtain, or a body bag scavenged from a triage center. The clarity of the plastic is vital because it must allow solar radiation to penetrate the chamber and heat the air and soil inside. Anchor the edges of the plastic completely around the rim of the pit using heavy rocks and dirt. You must create an airtight seal. If air can escape, your moisture escapes with it. Finally, place a small stone in the exact center of the plastic sheet, directly over your collection cup. This creates an inverted cone shape, a gravity well for the water droplets to follow. Here is the science of your survival. The sun's shortwave radiation passes through the plastic and strikes the bottom of the pit, heating the soil and the contaminated water. As the temperature rises, the water molecules gain kinetic energy and break their bonds. transitioning from a liquid state to a gaseous vapor. This is the magic of distillation. The heavy contaminants, the bacteria, the radioactive isotopes, the dissolved solids, and the viruses are too heavy to vaporize at these temperatures. They are left behind in the soil. The pure water vapor rises, hitting the underside of the plastic sheet. Because the plastic is in contact with the outside air, it is cooler than the superheated air inside the pit. When the vapor hits this cooler surface, it loses energy and undergoes a phase change back into liquid, condensing into droplets. Gravity takes over, pulling the droplets down the cone you created with the rock, where they drip, one by one, into your cup. You are harvesting the sweat of the earth. The psychology of patience and yield. The solar still is not a faucet. It is a slow-yield system, and understanding this will keep you from breaking the seal too early. A well-built still might yield a pint to a quart of water per day, depending on the solar intensity and ground moisture. The rookie mistake is checking it every hour. Every time you lift that plastic, you dump the accumulated heat and humidity, resetting the thermodynamic cycle and costing yourself hours of production. You must let the physics work. Set it in the morning, and do not touch it until the sun goes down. While you wait, you must conserve your own internal water. Minimize exertion, stay in the shade, and breathe through your nose to capture the moisture in your own exhalation. There is a way to hack this system for higher output if you have the materials. If you have a length of tubing, run it from the collection cup out the side of the pit before you seal it. This allows you to suck the purified water out without dismantling the still. This is a closed-loop hydration system. If the ground is totally dry, you can use this same method to purify urine. It sounds horrific to the civilized mind, but in the wasteland, urine is just 95% water mixed with waste products that the solar still will effortlessly remove. The water that condenses on that plastic is chemically identical to the finest bottled water you drank in the old world. It has no memory of where it came from. But what happens when the sun is choked by ash clouds or the night is freezing and long? The solar still relies on radiant energy, and without it, the process halts. The ground becomes cold, and the evaporation rate drops to near zero. You cannot rely on one method alone. You need a way to force the phase change aggressively, using combustion to tear the hydrogen and oxygen away from the poison. This brings us to active distillation, a method for when you have fuel, fire, and a refusal to die quietly. Method 2. The Alchemist's Reactor. Boiling water is the oldest trick in the book, but boiling only kills biological pathogens. It does nothing to remove chemical toxins, heavy metals, or radiation. If you boil water contaminated with lead or arsenic, you simply concentrate the poison as the water boils away, leaving you with a smaller amount of deadlier liquid. To get actual purity, you must build a distillation train. You need a heat source, a boiling vessel, a condensation tube, and a collection vessel. Scavenge for a metal pot, a tea kettle, or a pressure cooker. You also need metal tubing, copper pipes from plumbing, the cooling coils from the back of a refrigerator, or flexible metal conduit. Set up your primary vessel over a fire. Fill it with your contaminated water. Attach your tubing to the vent or spout of this vessel. If you are using a pot with a lid, you may need to punch a hole and seal the tube with clay or mud to ensure the steam is forced into the pipe. Run the tubing away from the fire and into your clean collection container. The longer the tube, the better. As the water in the boiler hits 100 degrees Celsius, 212 Fahrenheit, it vaporizes. The steam travels through the tube. To make this work, the steam must cool down enough to turn back into water before it exits the tube. You can enhance this by wrapping the tube in a wet cloth or burying the middle section of the tube in snow or wet earth. This is a heat exchange system. The steam carries the thermal energy from the fire. By cooling the tube, you strip that energy away, forcing the gas to collapse back into liquid form. The result dripping from the end of the tube is distilled water. The dangerous sludge stays in the boiling pot. Be warned that this process creates a pressurized system. If your tube gets blocked or kinked, your boiler becomes a bomb. Keep the tubing clear and ensure there is a steady path for the steam. This method is faster than the solar still but requires constant attention and fuel. You are trading calories and wood for hydration. It is an expensive trade, but one you must be willing to make when the alternative is kidney failure. The hidden dangers of steam. There is a specific danger in distillation that few discuss: the superheating of water. Steam can cause burns far worse than boiling water because it carries the latent heat of vaporization. When steam hits your skin, it doesn't just cool down. It undergoes a phase change that releases a massive amount of energy directly into your tissue. Handle your distillation rig with extreme caution. Wrap your hands in cloth or leather before touching any part of the metal tubing. Furthermore, the water you produce will be flat and devoid of minerals. Over a long period, drinking exclusively distilled water can leach electrolytes from your body, leading to a different kind of imbalance. If you have them, add a pinch of salt or clean earth to the finished water to remineralize it. Survival is a balancing act between toxicity and deficiency. But perhaps you have no fire. Perhaps you are in an urban environment where smoke will give away your position to hostile groups. You need a method that is silent, passive, and capable of handling the gross particulate matter that clogs other systems. You need to build a mechanical filtration tower, a structure that mimics the Earth's natural groundwater filtration. This is not about phase change. This is about physical entrapment and chemical adsorption. Method 3. The Scavengers Biotower. This method is the final barrier between you and the muck. It is best used as a pre-filter before boiling or for when you have chemical tablets, like iodine or chlorine, but the water is too turbid for them to work effectively. Chemical disinfectants cannot penetrate clumps of dirt or sediment. The bacteria hide inside the particles like soldiers in a bunker. You must strip the water of debris first. To do this, you will build a gravity-fed filtration stack using a plastic bottle, a traffic cone, or a stacked series of buckets. Invert a large plastic bottle and cut off the bottom. This is your housing. At the narrow neck, which is now at the bottom, stuff a piece of cloth, cotton, or packed grass. This prevents your filter media from falling out. Now, you are going to layer materials from finest to coarsest. This is counterintuitive to some, but think about it. You want the water to flow through the finest material last to catch the smallest particles. However, for packing the bottle, you pour them in reverse order of flow. The first layer against the cloth should be crushed charcoal. This is the most critical component. Charcoal is not just burnt wood. It is carbon that has been structurally changed by heat. It possesses a property called adsorption. Note the D. Absorption is like a sponge soaking up water. Adsorption is like a magnet. The porous surface of the charcoal chemically binds to toxins, removing dissolved impurities that physical screens miss. You can make this by taking wood from a fire that has burned down to black coals, crushing them into a powder, and packing them tight. Above the charcoal, add a layer of fine sand. This catches the smaller particulate matter that passed through the upper layers. Above the sand, add coarse sand or small gravel. Finally, top it off with larger rocks or pebbles. When you pour your dirty water into the top, it hits the rocks first. The large rocks filter out the leaves, bugs, and twigs. The gravel catches the mud. The sand catches the silt. And finally, the water is forced through the charcoal gauntlet where chemical impurities are trapped in the carbon lattice. The limitations of mechanical filtration. Do not let the clarity of the water fool you. The water dripping from the bottom of your biotower will look crystal clear, but clarity is not sterility. This filter removes the solids, the chemicals, and the bad tastes, but it does not remove viruses. Viruses are microscopic genetic code wrapped in protein, small enough to surf through the gaps between sand grains and charcoal pores. If you drink this water directly, you are still gambling. This method creates pre-treated water. It is now ready for a small amount of bleach, 2 drops per liter, or solar disinfection, leaving it in a clear bottle in the sun for 6 hours to kill the biologicals. The filter does the heavy lifting so the chemicals can do the sniping. If you have no chemicals and no fire, and you are forced to rely on the biotower alone, you are playing Russian roulette. However, you can improve your odds by making the charcoal layer as thick as possible and running the water through the system multiple times. The more contact time the water has with the charcoal, the more toxins are pulled out. It is a desperate measure, but in survival, we trade certainty for probability. You are managing risk, not eliminating it. The trap of the acid sky. A brief warning on rainwater. In the Old World, rain was considered the purest source. In a post-industrial or post-nuclear scenario, the sky is a toxic conveyor belt. Rainwater scrubs the atmosphere as it falls. If the air is filled with ash, sulfur, or chemical fallout, the rain brings that down to you. Do not assume that just because it fell from a cloud, it is safe. Collect rainwater, but treat it with the same suspicion you treat the river water. Run it through your charcoal filter. Distill it if you can. The environment is no longer your mother. It is an indifferent system that has been corrupted. Survival psychology, the architecture of routine. The act of purifying water does more than just hydrate your cells, it anchors your mind. In a chaos scenario, the loss of control is the second biggest killer after the elements. By building a solar still, constructing a distillation rig, or packing a charcoal filter, you are imposing order onto chaos. You are taking tangible steps to secure your future. This psychological boost is massive. It shifts your mindset from victim to operator. You are no longer waiting to die. You are engineering your survival. Every drop of water you produce is a victory against the entropy of the universe. When you watch that first clear drop fall from the condensation tube or the bottom of your filter, you are witnessing the proof of your own agency. You are proving that you can manipulate the physical world to sustain your biological needs. This creates a positive feedback loop. You drink, your brain creates clarity, you plan better, and you survive longer. The apathy that comes with dehydration, the desire to just lie down and sleep, is broken by the routine of maintenance and collection. The final verdict. You are now armed with the knowledge to turn the poisonous landscape into a resource. You understand that the solar still uses the sun to perform a phase change jailbreak for water molecules. You know that active distillation uses heat exchange to strip energy and separate pure liquid from toxic soup. You understand that the biotower uses mechanical obstruction and chemical adsorption to scrub water clean. These are not magic tricks. They are the fundamental laws of physics applied to the problem of staying alive. The world may be broken, the infrastructure may be rusted, and the rivers may glow with death, but the rules of chemistry remain absolute. Water wants to be pure. It just needs you to give it a path to escape the filth. You are the catalyst. Do not wait until your lips are cracking to start building your systems. Start now. Test the soil. Scavenge the plastic. Burn the charcoal. You are not cold, and you are not helpless. You are a fortress of biological resilience, and you have just learned how to fuel the machine. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop your worst close call dehydration story in the comments below. The most harrowing story gets my personal blueprint for a high-volume tiered filtration system pinned to the top. The water is out there. Go claim it. Next, we are going to talk about how to extract calories from things you never thought were food. Stay sharp.